All right. So again, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is ANC3C's September 2023 public meeting. So we will start off with the establishment of a quorum. So I am present and representing 3C03, 3C02,
Present.
3C01,
Present.
3C08,
Here.
3C07,
Seven's here.
3C06,
Present.
3C05,
Here.
3C04.
Present.
All right, with that, the quorum being 5, all 8 commissioners are present. We'll move on to the verification of notice. We noticed the listservs, the Twitter account, the website, along with updates to all of those along the way, and our email list, which we encourage folks to subscribe to get updates directly from us. I'm hoping one of my colleagues can post that link in the chat to sign up for that. We will move to approval of the agenda and the items on the consent calendar. The items on the consent calendar are the approval of the July 2023 meeting minutes, a resolution regarding HPRB application for 2964 Newark Street, a renovation and addition, and a resolution regarding grave concerns about performance and reliability at the Office of Unified Communications. So once we approve the agenda, these items that are on the consent calendar would also be approved. Does anybody have any changes to the consent calendar?
No.
Okay. We do have a minor change to the agenda under commission business. Item number 4, the discussion and consideration of a letter of support of the reinstallation of the trash enclosure at 2616 Connecticut Avenue is going to be a discussion. So if you're waiting for a vote on that, it's not happening this month. So with that, any other changes to the items on the rest of the agenda? Seeing none, those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye or raise your hand. All right, that is the majority. So we will move on with the agenda as mildly amended. First up, we have announcements, starting with single member district reports. I had posted on the agenda an update on the zoo bus parking and Connecticut Avenue drop-off operations that the zoo has provided. So that is available for everyone. They are piloting this program that will hopefully alleviate some of the problems and issues that have been occurring with tour bus pickup and drop-offs on the avenue. So more to come on that, but there is a reservation system and all of this information is also available on their website, and they're reaching out to their tour bus partners. So that's my single member update from 3C03. Any other single member updates? Commissioner Geis.
Thank you. Very briefly. Oh, there's an echo.
Getting some feedback. Okay.
Awesome.
I think it was just Commissioner Kripke, so I've just muted him.
Okay.
Great. So Garfield Street and 3C01 between 27th Street and Connecticut Avenue is getting speed bumps. So there's going to be construction there in the next couple of weeks. So that's something to look out for. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Commissioner Kripke.
Hi. A couple quick things from 3C07. Number one, for the neighbors who have noticed that the Woodley Playground has not been cleaned up after the storm in late July, That has been a source of annoyance for me and my neighbors. We have word from the Park Service that they're going to contract out the cleanup and that should happen next week. So stay tuned, but it's been a frustrating bit of time when that playground is closed off to families that want to use it. But I think we're going to get it cleaned up next week. If not, I'll be pestering them even more. And a second thing is that I had previously announced to neighbors that there's going to be a big Washington Gas project on Cleveland. It's at the border of my SMD and Rick Nash's SMD at Cleveland and 32nd. They're going to dig up that intersection and a couple other intersections, and it's going to take weeks, and they may have to divert traffic. And that was supposed to have been started in August. I've only heard secondhand that they pushed it off till October. I'm trying to get an answer from Washington Gas about when that's scheduled, but they have not yet dug up that intersection. I think they still will, but I think it's going to be in October. I'll provide more information about what I learned from Washington Gas on that. So I just want to make those two quick announcements.
Great, thank you. Other commissioners, Commissioner Siddiqui.
There are two issues that I want to highlight that neighbors have been reaching out to me about, and both actually that Matthew Barclay is helping me with. So I'm hoping that he can get to the bottom of these. One is the rats that are at the Macklin construction site. There's lots of issues pertaining to that. One, the trash in the site is one part of it. A bigger part of it is they're fenced off trees over there, and essentially the rats have created a lot of nests in there, and getting to those nests is very difficult. So there has been coordination between the contractor and DDOT because they're in charge of the trees, and then the rat and rodent abatement team, they're different. So there's been a lot of coordination to get them. We've got them to come out once. They said they would send an update today. I haven't seen an update today, so I hope we get an update on that. The other is that Porter Street seems to be blocked both ways for no reason whatsoever on the part that's in my SMD, and we've sort of come to a conclusion that it is Pepco, but they're not putting up enough notice for the signs for the road being blocked, and we still haven't heard from them exactly what is going on. So I know Matthew is aware of that as well. So I'm hoping that we get to the bottom of this. But I know a lot of neighbors have emailed me about both of those things, and they keep emailing about those. So I'm hoping that we can get to the bottom of them. But that doesn't mean you stop emailing me. Keep emailing me so I can keep reminding Matthew so that he can keep reminding everyone else.
I sent follow-ups today, by the way. Haven't received anything.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, if I could just pick up on what Commissioner Siddiqui said, and I suppose this is a report as well from ISMD. Pepco has been doing a lot of work in the area, and most of it seems to be replacing utility poles with new, much higher poles. But not only are they providing notice very late, but they're sometimes even putting up notice several days after the purported restriction period has started, which certainly puts, residents at risk for parking tickets to appear with no notice. Beyond that, unfortunately, there is no time frame for transfer of other utilities from the existing poles to the new poles, because they involve Verizon lines and those of other service providers. And, I think we really do need DC attention to make that happen. A reasonable time is one thing, but there's at least one intersection in this SMD where two poles, a replacement pole and a legacy pole, have existed side by side, blocking sight lines at an important intersection. And without, more focus by the DC government, whether it's DDOT and the regulator, this transfer just won't happen.
Okay. Commissioner Nash, have you been in touch with Matthew about this?
I've been in touch with DDOT and also with Pepco itself and with Verizon. But thus far, there is no commitment to transfer utilities in a reasonable time frame because it just requires all these utilities to commit to it. So Fortunately, I think that residents around the area are in for the long haul. The upside will be hopefully more and better power reliability, but the downside is much more work, and there is also some impact on the tree canopy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Right, any other single member district updates? Commissioner
I have
McCoy,
one.
go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to recognize the residents of Quebec House for starting a tenants association. They started one in response to mismanagement of the north and south buildings by the building management company, Community Realty Management. They've held a couple of organizing and social meetings so far, and any residents who want to get involved with the Tenants Association, I'll put the email address in the chat. That's the good news out of my district.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gordon, did you have any single member district to add, or are we good?
No, I just got excited for Quebec House about that association. I know they've had a lot of issues.
Great. Well, not great that they had issues, but great that they're
Great that it's getting fixed up. We have issues in mine also. I'm just gonna save them for later.
great. Thank you. Actually, Commissioner Prinzo, did you have any or no?
No, we're good for right now.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to committee reports. So safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation.
Our committee met last week. One of the items we met about was related to the DDOT notice of intent related to parking, which the letter is on the agenda today. The other one we briefly mentioned, which the letter is also on the agenda today, is the reiteration of the support for Concept C. Again, both letters are on the agenda and they're linked in the agenda. If anyone wants to look at that. The third big item that we did talk about was road safety on 34th Street. All the way up, all the way where it intersects with the boundaries of 3C. Commissioner Nash and I have started a draft document where we're collecting all issues, and we're hoping at the next Transportation Committee meeting we can finalize and formalize that document. I'm going to put a link to that document in the chat if anyone would like to sort of add to it. You're allowed to add comments to it. And if you are interested in contributing to that, please just email me and or Commissioner Nash. We'll be happy to make sure that we get your comments inside. And the other thing that was resolved that we talked about at the committee meeting was related to parking in front of the zoo, specifically for a zoo event that's about to happen. And Commissioner Baggett's already talked about that. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Transparency and public process, any updates?
Nope.
Community engagement and grants. Sorry.
I don't think, sorry, I had to unmute. I don't think I have any updates unless you want to update on the situation with the Office of ANC.
No, we're probably gonna have to take some more time to resolve that, but yes, more to come. Planning, zoning, housing, and economic development. So we also met this week and do have items on further down on the agenda as well, including the HPRB letter regarding the Connecticut Avenue development guidelines. We also touched on the NOI for the conversion of the 2-hour metered parking. But that was covered in much more detail at the Transportation Committee meeting as well. And our next committee meeting is October 2nd. So if anybody has any items they'd like discussed or put onto the agenda for that, please reach out to myself and Commissioner Gordon as we chair that committee. Commissioner Gordon, did you have anything else to add?
No, I feel I was out of town this week, so I feel like I was a little disengaged on that.
Oh, no. The Residential Historic Preservation Committee.
Why don't I just jump in? The committee met prior to this meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the only matter it reviewed was the addition to the home in the 2900 block of Newark Street, which is the subject of the consent resolution that was adopted.
Thank you. Environmental justice.
Yes, the Environmental Justice Committee met last Tuesday. We had a discussion and presentation from Jamie Donovan of the Department of Energy and Environment about the Clean Energy DC 2.0 plan, which is the district's plan to reduce carbon emissions in buildings, energy infrastructure, and transportation in particular. So the recording for that will be up on the YouTube channel. It's a good discussion. It's more of it felt more like a theoretical discussion than more an action-based one like our previous meetings. But we did talk about ways for residents to get involved and to learn more. Our next meeting will be on October 10th. The Environmental Justice Committee meetings will be the second Tuesday of the month from now on.
Great, thank you. And there is also the opportunity for the community and the ANC to input on the Clean Energy 2.0 plan as it's still being drafted, and I believe in the fall we'll be getting more details on the timeline for that too. So
that's right. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so with that, we will move on to presentations. Our first presentation is on community education surrounding the council's social work license modernization amendment of 2023 by Andrea Harrell of the Department of Behavioral Health. Cassandra, I see your hand is up. Can we do in the community announcements? We'll take Main Street's updates. Great, thank you. Let me just find Andrea here. Andrea, did you need to be given permission to present your screen or anything, or are you just talking?
Oh, I can. Yes, I do have one thing I can share with everyone. Let me see.
Okay.
Feel pressure to share.
Yeah, no pressure. And thank you for joining.
Yeah, we were just
Sure. Let's see. I can do this. Let me make it bigger. Oh, I made it too big.
And we could also post, I believe, are you going to show us the flyer that you sent? We can post it to our website too. So again,
Oh, yes, that's the flyer I was going to send, that was going to attach. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, that's the flyer I was going to attach. Well, okay, so I'm not that tech savvy, so I won't worry about attaching it. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to present to you all. I really appreciate it. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yep.
So again, my name is Andrea Harrell. I am a social worker with the Department of Behavioral Health. I'm also a resident of Washington, D.C. And I just wanted to share some information with you all. My colleagues and coworkers and friends have been meeting with different ANC groups to try to get information out about what we're trying to do. Earlier this year, at-large DC Council member Robert White recently introduced the Social Work Licensure Modernization Amendment Act of 2023. The purpose of that proposed bill was to tackle the district's social worker shortage and remove unnecessary barriers to licensure by eliminating the exam requirements for the LSWA and or that's the licensed social work associates and the licensed graduate social workers. The press release cited and based the legislation primarily on the 2022 study from the Association of Social Work Boards. The study exam, they felt that some of the test answers, I'm sorry, the test questions there was some racial bias in the test. And that's why they developed this legislation. They felt that BIPOC test takers, Black, there were just disparities between Black and white test takers. And they felt that that was the reason for the shortage of social workers in the district government or in the district as a whole. Again, my colleagues and I got this information about the bill, and we're opposing the bill because we feel it's short-sighted, misguided, and will have long-term detrimental consequences for the profession and the public. First, we feel that they wouldn't do that to other professions. If there were doctors or attorneys that they felt that there was some bias in the test, they wouldn't take licensure away from doctors or lawyers or nurses. And social workers, our predecessors have fought long and hard to be recognized as a licensed profession. We're fighting for the ABSW to change the test. We're hoping to work with the ABSW to get a task force to revise some of the test questions so that, it might not be as hard or as difficult for some to pass the test the first time around. Also, given the current immense needs of the consumers served by the profession of social work, this is not the time to water down the licensure process. We feel that the bill is demoralizing and offensive to many current professional social workers in DC. Again, we're hoping to get support. There is actually a hearing this Thursday, the 21st at 9:30, and I can also try to share that link with you all as well if you're interested in testifying, or if you're interested in just listening to the process, the process for Thursday, how that happens and the outcome. Again, we're looking for support. If you have any other questions or anything, please definitely let me know. I know I was a little wordy and a little nervous as well. So again, I really want to thank you for your time. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. We started a petition. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter page as well. And we're on as Social Workers Unite DC. And again, my name is Andrea Harrell, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chanel, you're on mute.
Sorry. Commissioners, do you have any questions and want to keep it brief? No? Community members can raise your hand virtually or...
Yes, hi. My name's Chris Laurenti, and I live in Tammy's ward, her district high, and I'm a social worker. And in fact, Andrea and I worked together for years. And this whole thing is such an assault to our profession, that our profession would be picked up as a profession that you don't need to be licensed, even though you're expected to work with children on trauma issues in the public schools. And yet, you can do that work and not have a license. So, and I will be there Thursday, Andrea. So I hope you all can support us in this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll post the flyer and try to get a link to the council hearing sign up page as well on our website as soon as we can. So thank you. Cassandra?
Thanks, Janelle. Sorry about earlier. I never quite know. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming out and supporting Captain Cookie's grand opening. And
Cassandra, sorry, we do want to get through the presentations and then in the community.
Oh, I'm sorry, sweet. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So any other questions for Andrea? And Andrea, thank you again for coming and letting us know what this is about. It's great to, there's a lot of stuff going on in council, especially now that they're back in session. So it's always good to have people be made aware. So thank you again. All right, next up in the presentation section is Emir from the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. So Emir, I'm going to attempt to find you here. Do you have anything to present, like to share on the screen?
I'll just be speaking today.
Okay, great. Fire away.
All right, thank you so much. So my name is Emir Gur-Ravantab. I'm with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection as a account manager for Ward 3. And I've already come to speak to this commission previously this year. So I will keep it short and focus on a few legislative updates that are coming into effect with the new fiscal year starting October 1st in a few weeks. So the first law I wanted to start with is the Fair Meals Delivery Act. This was passed in 2021, so it's just coming into effect this year. And it does a few things. First, it prohibits a third-party meal delivery platform such as Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, anything like that, from arranging to deliver a meal from a restaurant without first obtaining an agreement. So basically, they can't post a restaurant as a listing without their permission. They also are not allowed to change their ranking, their priority, or anything like that based on their metrics or stuff like that. So they have to prioritize with quality and how they show the restaurants on their platform. And they also have to be, they have to reveal the schedule of fees that they charge, so service fees, and they are capped on the amount of the service fee they can charge. So those all are coming into effect this year as part of the Fair Meals Delivery Act. The next one I want to talk about was the Cashless Retailers Prohibition Act. This one's even older. This is from 2019, but it's just now getting the funding to come into effect. And it's pretty simple what it does. It just prohibits retail establishments from, the letter of the law says, from discriminating against cash as a form of payment, including charging different prices to customers depending on their payment method. So it can't say anything like refuse to accept cash as a form of payment. They can't post signs on the premises that cash payment is not accepted. And as said before, they can't charge a higher price to consumers who choose to pay in cash. And this was in response to the high number of DC residents who are unbanked. The major one I want to talk about was the Street Vendor Amendment Act. This one was passed by council this year, and it will be going into effect October 1st, just like all the other laws. And it does a few major things. The biggest thing one could say it does is that it decriminalizes vending. So now if you're caught vending without a license, you can't be arrested. The police are only allowed to detain you as long as it takes to get identifying information about you to write a citation. So it does that. It also changes the hours of operations so that Sunday through Thursday, 5 a.m. to midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. are the hours of allowed vending, provided that the vendors who operate in residential zones as specified in the DC zoning regulations book shall not vend past 10 p.m. on any night of the week. It also gets rid of the requirement for a background check or a certified copy of criminal history report for anyone applying to get a vendor's license. And it also sets vending zones, sidewalk vending zones. It allows the opportunity to create them, and it requires the creation of one at Columbia Heights, which was, if you ever go to Columbia Heights, you'll see there's a lot of vendors there, and that was kind of what this law was created around. So it requires for the creation of this one vending zone there, and it allows for the creation of further vending zones in the future. But what this vending zone basically is it's an area, and there is a vending sidewalk manager that is a nonprofit organization that has to basically do everything on behalf of the vendors in that area. So they create a vending plan for where vendors can be and how they operate and stuff like that. They mediate disputes between vendors, and they help them with licensure. So they're essentially a level between the government and the vendors on the street to help them manage their business, since a lot of them don't speak English, or they might not be well-versed in how to work with the government. So those are the major things being changed by the Street Vendor Amendment Act. And the final thing I want to talk about, this is not a new law. It's the Flavored Tobacco Prohibition Amendment Act that actually went into effect last year. And many of you probably know this is the law that banned the sale of flavored tobacco in DC, and it also banned the sale of e-cigarettes and electronic vapes within a quarter mile of high schools and middle schools. So this law has been in effect, but I know it's a hot topic in this neighborhood since there's a lot of smoke shops that exist. Many of them exist near schools, and they are indeed selling e-cigarettes and vapes and also flavored tobacco, which flavored tobacco is banned citywide, not just within those school zones. But I wanted to answer a few things about that. So DLCP is aware, we've been aware that there's a lot of complaints about those stores. And while we can't regulate how those businesses are set up, so we can't stop them from opening, we don't regulate the sale of marijuana, which is a common question that comes up about that. That is regulated by, it used to be ABRA, now it's called ABCA, but that agency does the regulation of any marijuana sales. All we can do is prevent them from selling flavored tobacco and selling e-cigarettes near schools. So we are increasing our enforcement capabilities by hiring more inspectors. And as account manager, it's something that I want to set up in the future, a walkthrough with or without the community, but definitely joined by inspectors, multiple inspectors doing a walkthrough of the commercial strips with many of these stores to get a sense of which stores are selling what products, and doing this in a surprise enforcement check, since many complaints I've had in the past about stores, when the inspectors do go out there, they find that the product has been hidden away or is behind like a secret area. So that's what we're trying to do to solve that issue. But I am happy to hear about any community feedback on that, since we might not have heard about every store that is committing these violations. So if you do notice these violations happening in your neighborhood, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Our agency is the one that has the enforcement capabilities. It's called the Consumer Protection Unit. And we do things like obviously consumer protection, but that falls under that is preventing those violations from happening. So that's all for my part, but I can take any questions and feedback.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions you have? No. Community members?
Yes, I have a question. Emir, hi. Who pays for, out of what pot of money do these liaisons get paid? It's a great idea where they're making sure they're registered and licensed, but where does that money come from?
That I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with their payment schedule. They're nonprofits, so I don't want to speak about anything I'm not certain about, but the DC government does have funds for nonprofits that it works with, but I'm not sure what pot of money exactly is coming to fund that part. That I don't know if is exactly going to be, because that's sort of a political decision for who exactly is going to be the sidewalk manager.
Yes. Emir, if you want to follow up with me on any of that, I can make sure to get back to Chris if you find anything out there.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? You all can raise your virtual hand by clicking on the reactions button and tapping raise hand. Cassandra?
Emir, what counts as a vendor? Is it someone that is vending several days in a row, or is this going to apply to like the pop-up markets and things?
I don't think it has any relation to do with how frequently they do it. So it can relate to, yes, those pop-up markets, those people who, there's sidewalk vendors, and then there's roadside vendors. So the trucks and the cars that are, food trucks and stuff like that. So the sidewalk vendors are people who just set up like a tent or a table and sell stuff. So there is a vendor's license that can be required to obtain before doing such activity.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, and to set up the inspection and the walkthrough of here, do I reach out to you or?
Yeah, you can reach out to me if people want to report any instances of these violations. We do also have our CPU is public. If you'd like to make a public report about anything that relates to DLCP, I can send that link to Janelle and she can share it.
Yeah, that would be grateful. What does that stand for?
CPU is the Consumer Protection Unit.
Okay. Great. And the marijuana enforcement is through, like, so if these tobacco shops are selling marijuana there, who's
That goes to the ABCA. So it used to be ABRA, now ABCA, the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Authority. So they're the ones that handle both alcohol licenses and marijuana licenses.
but they're not licensed to sell marijuana?
Presumably not. No, there's the license to sell marijuana is like a very strict thing. I think there's only 2 allowed per ward, and I don't think Ward 3 has any approved marijuana dispensaries. So yes, in practice, these stores shouldn't be selling weed, but the ABCA is the authority that would investigate that, and I presume they would also include MPD in such a raid as well. But DLCP wouldn't get involved with that part of economic activity.
Okay. But so when we're going to do an inspection walkthrough, you would bring along some of those guys too from that division, or no?
Well, the plan was to focus on tobacco. That's certainly an option.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to speak about my leadership because, like, as an agency, the focus is tobacco and the tobacco violations, and the other things are for the other agencies. But I can see if they are interested in making it a multi-agency thing.
Okay, great, because they're likely doing both. All right, does anyone else have any questions? Anything else to add? Nope. Okay, we will now move on to the community forum. So this is, I've been meaning to include Cleveland Park Main Streets and Woodley Park Main Streets. It's a regular item on this agenda. Apparently I got the summer vacation, brainwaves with being off in August, and I apologize for missing adding that. So Cassandra, the time is yours now. Please be brief though.
Finally, I'm just kidding. All right, so I'm so grateful for everybody who has welcomed Captain Cookie, Little Blackbird, Ty Love, and DC After Work. Their grand opening will be October 2nd. This weekend, we're getting new banners on the lampposts, which is very exciting. I know the other ones have been up there for 100 years. The first Saturday at 8 of the month and the third Saturday of the month, we have litter pickups. We meet in front of GW Urgent Care. First Saturday is 8 a.m. Third Saturday is at 3:30 p.m., followed by a little jaunt down to Nanny's. Only 30 minutes of picking up litter, and it's shocking how much litter you pick up in 30 minutes. And then just a plug for Art All Night. Woodley Park, Van Ness, and Cleveland Park and DuPont Circle are all participating on the same night, Saturday, September 30th. I'm sure Robert will tell you about Woodley Park. But Cleveland Park is 5 to 10 p.m. Our volunteer slots are filled, but please come out, support your local artist, and have a great time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Robert from Woodley Park Main Street.
Thanks, Janelle. I'm here with a little assistance, so if you hear some strange noises, that's that's coming from
the highlight. It's been the highlight so far.
It's just she's been with us now for a week and a half, so I may not be entirely coherent, but I think that most people will understand what's going on there with sleep deprivation. My thanks as well, everyone, for the first of the Narcan trainings that we had at Le Petit Monde last week. We had 15 people come out to learn about Narcan and how to use that. We're going to be organizing another training together with the ANC, but we had to do this before the end of the fiscal year to meet our obligations under the grant. So we're going to be paying for it ourselves next year. Not an issue. My thanks to Adam, my thanks to Big Payel, and my thanks to Le Petit Monde for each being willing to host that. Cassandra mentioned Art All Night. We're looking forward to that. It happens to coincide with Pandapalooza, the unfortunate loss of the pandas at the National Zoo. We're also organizing something around that with a National Geographic photographer called Amy Vitale. I would suggest that you look her up. She won the World Press Photo Prize 6 times. She's absolutely phenomenal, and we're bringing her to the neighborhood to talk about the history of the panda program in China specifically, and her photographs are absolutely incredible. She'll be here on the 1st of October at the Cleveland Park Library. And then we're going to have an exhibition by her together with the Stanford Gallery, which will probably be a little bit later on. I had hoped to make all of this as part of Art All Night, but with 3 weeks notice, it was a bit difficult to pull together. But I really can't wait for this because she's a wonderful person. I've worked with her in the past, and I think everyone's going to be really, really impressed with the history of the PANDA program, and the exhibition will be quite good too. With that, let me see. Do we have everything? Oh, of course, Art All Night will be. We'll have it from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I'm not mistaken. We'll start with a arts gallery or with an arts market in 2600 block. There'll be music and different events at different locations. Together with Cleveland Park, we'll be organizing something in front of the zoo around our endangered animals program. And I'll send something around for everyone with all the information. For me, that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations on your new addition. Ashley from Councilmember Fruman's office, I see you're on. Did you have anything you wanted to mention in this section? Yes? Or you do? Go ahead. You can unmute, or hold on.
Yeah,
Do-
Ashley, I'm asking you to unmute. You should see a pop-up there.
Yeah. Did it
There you go.
happen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right, great. Sorry about that. All right, so September 20th, we are doing another workday in the ward at Steak and Egg from 8 to 5. We'll have MPD, DOB, Matthew Barkley will be there. DLCP, Emir will be there as well. DPR will be there, and DBH, Department of Behavioral Health. And also coffee with the council member from 8 to 10. On September 9th, Councilmember Fruman hosted a community discussion following the shooting that occurred in front of 4601 Connecticut Avenue. He was joined by MPD Commander Branch to respond directly to constituent questions regarding the recent shooting, youth violence, thefts from stores, and other public safety concerns. I'll post a link to Councilmember Fruman's Facebook page for the recorded video of the public safety meeting in the chat, if anybody would like to see that. The council is back in session, and Councilmember Fruman is currently working on several pieces of legislation to address issues facing the ward, such as safety and security in multifamily housing and outdated deed covenants. We'd also like for you to sign up for our email, for our newsletter, to stay up to date on this and all other activities. And any questions about legislation can be directed to Stephen Palmer, Legislative Director. And of course, if you have any constituent issues or concerns, please feel free to reach out via phone or through our email, frumanoffice@dccouncil.gov. Yeah, I'll post some links in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew, I see your hand up. If you want to briefly, please.
Hi, everybody. Three main things this week. Yesterday, Mayor Bowser celebrated the opening of the Whitman Walker new facility at the St. Elizabeth East Campus. This will allow expanded healthcare to east of the river and then the entire city. I believe I saw the number of 10,000 people, extra people will be able to access healthcare through this campus. Then also tomorrow is the DC Maternal Health event, the summit. Keystone event connects district residents with local and national resources for women, babies, and families to thrive. So this will start, you can register at maternalhealthdc.com, not gov. 9 to 5 tomorrow. Doors open at 8. And you can please register, and there's lift codes on the website as well. Also, this is a theater week. We encourage you to visit our theater scene in DC, from Anacostia Arts to H Street to downtown, all across DC. Artists are putting on fantastic shows, and we encourage you to go and check them out. This will culminate in Mayor Bowser's Art Awards at the Lincoln Theater September 28th. And then 29th and the 30th, we have Art All Night. And looking forward to seeing you guys out in Cleveland Park and other areas of Ward 3. Thank y'all.
Great, thank you. All right, so continuing with the community forum, this is the opportunity for members of the public to ask questions or raise concerns about issues that aren't otherwise on the agenda. We do ask that, again, you be brief, because we do have still a number of items on the agenda. So if anyone would like to take advantage of this, please go down to the reactions button and raise your virtual hand. Okay, Leonard Zach.
Hi, I'm Leonard Zach.
Mr. Zach. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. I'm at an airport, but hopefully not too much background noise. I am a Woodley Park resident and have lived in this neighborhood, the Connecticut Avenue neighborhood, up and down for all my professional life, as president from the Harvard Design School, studied law and practiced.
Mr. Zach, we're having a lot of trouble hearing you.
Would you like me to speak up? Is that more helpful?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Do you have background noise too? No,
not a whole lot anymore. It was just really muffled.
Okay, well, I'll try to speak more clearly. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm a Woodley Park resident. I've long been active in DC civic matters, and I'm ready to get involved, having just retired, at least after I return from a big vacation that begins 11:15 p.m. tonight when my plane takes off. And there's just some areas in which I think I can be especially helpful. I just want to mention to you, I'm not going to give you my whole resume, probably online somewhere, I don't know. But in any event, I do want to get actively involved, both in the Woodley Park Community Association, which I've been mildly actively involved, as John Goodman knows, and also this ANC. I want to help. I actually know a lot and have a lot of experience in historic preservation. All over the District of Columbia. I've served for many years on the board of the DC Preservation League. I've done a lot of work for the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and this is an area I know well. I've taught a course on historic preservation and neighborhood revitalization at the Harvard Design School, and I think I can help you, and I'm ready. Well, secondly, I got just two other things, and I'll be really fast, if I may.
Really fast.
Really fast. Neighborhood planning, lots of experience. And development, served on the board of the development of the National Building Museum, where I first
Mr. Zaks, can I ask you to email all at ANC3C.org, because
I'm done.
This is a public meeting and we're trying to.
No, I understand. I appreciate it. I'm just, I'll let you know I'm here and I'm available to help. And I might add, though my wife says I talk too much, I will try to be more concise when I work with you in the future.
Well, you have provided us with an opportunity to remind everyone, and this is for you too. We have stood up a number of committees, which I've provided a link to in the chat, and I'll email you a link to this as well, because we're looking for folks to join our committees as formal members of them from the community, because we know there is a wealth of expertise and experience out there, and we definitely want to involve that talent in what we're doing here. So thank you for offering up your help and allowing us the opportunity to again remind folks that we're always looking for help on these. And even if you can't formally join a committee and you just want to lightly be involved, again, reach out and we'll take advantage of your talents. So thank you. Okay. anyone else in the community forum? And then we're gonna move along. I don't see any more hands. So with that, we're moving on to commission business. So the first item on this section of the agenda is the discussion and consideration of a letter to HPRB regarding the Connecticut Avenue development guidelines. So Commissioner Siddiqui, did you want to introduce this one?
Sure. So this is a letter. It's a step below a resolution, just to help understand, but it just reiterates our support for the development guidelines that we passed earlier. The Office of Planning actually has an updated plan up based on the responses. They responded well to some of our comments. Other comments, we're going to engage with them later at the planning phase when the whole process of rezoning starts. But I've posted a link to the letter in the chat. This was discussed at our planning, zoning, economic, and housing development meeting. PZ, I hope I got housing and economic development meeting. So none of this should be a surprise. These were the issues that were brought up. I have essentially combined them into a letter and then sent it out to the commissioners. And essentially, I have not received any other feedback. But I welcome discussion now. And I guess this is not just it. I haven't done anything terribly new. This is just to work with me, and Commissioner Paggett's helped draft as well. So any questions or edits, welcome to take them. And Commissioner Paggett's, if you can help me with those, that'd be great too.
Sure. Are you making a motion to move this letter to discussion?
I would like to move this letter that I've pasted in the chat for a vote by the ANC for approval.
Second.
Well, first we do discussion, I believe.
Oh, sorry.
It's been seconded.
I'll take it back if you want.
No, you have to second the motion to move the letter.
Oh, okay. I'm really out of it today.
It's now open. Like I said, summer hiatus. So the motion's been seconded by Commissioner Prisno to move the letter for discussion. So with that, commissioners, do you have any discussion or edits to make to this, or suggestions of edits to make to this letter? Commissioner Nash.
Commissioner Nash.
Thanks very much. Respectfully, I think the challenges that I have with this letter are probably too fundamental to offer wording changes. My first challenge is that the OP development guidelines, and again, I want to stress these are not preservation or design guidelines. While they may have responded to some of the comments of the ANC of some months ago, fundamentally, they don't address the HPRB's comments from the May meeting, in particular, the board's instructions that the guidelines, and I quote, ensure that the proposed relationship between historic 1- and 2-story buildings to tall buildings and additions is compatible. Now, that language applies principally to the Cleveland Park Historic District, but I think also applies to Woodley Park. In other words, how the proposed allowable development height, which OP acknowledges in the revised guidelines, can reach up to 90 feet with a penthouse floor, will be compatible with the low-scale historic buildings. Now, I want to stress that this isn't a false choice of no change versus OP's fairly aggressive development proposal. Within the area that is the subject of a proposed upzoning, there are some 5-story buildings on the corners, and I believe that much of the community could support infill development with appropriate setbacks up to the height of those buildings as being compatible. Even OP earlier put forward less extreme development scenarios, but shows the maximum height and density possible if the area is upzoned before factoring in preservation considerations. And within that proposed upzoning area, there are no buildings at 75 feet and certainly not 90 feet, which are the height of what OP is proposing. And then the second issue, and I'll try to be brief here, that I have with the letter is what I think is a necessary and gratuitous swipe at a community nonprofit that's submitted, and what I understand is the HPO staff's request, non-binding preservation guidance for the board's review and feedback, just as guidelines for historic districts from around the city previously have been submitted to HPRB. Now, I can't speak for CPHS, which submitted the guidelines. They may be here to speak for themselves, but it does seem a bit of a stretch for the ANC to try to mediate or adjudicate that organization's non-binding guidance any more than it would attempt to do the same to the comments of another private party on the appropriate scope and development in the historic district. I mean, these guidelines are not in the ANC record, and the letter doesn't adequately explain what's so objectionable. And, you know, when I went to read the guidelines, if anything, they seem to track the Secretary of Interior's historic preservation standards, DC law principles, and the HPRB's own guidelines for new and infill construction, which are all very established standards for historic preservation review. So those are my principal issues with the letter, and thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. First, totally understand, where you're coming from, and totally understand that if you're unable to provide edits and you're not able to vote for this, that is perfectly fine. I think just to quickly, just want to clarify, just in case someone misinterprets your comments, 90 feet building are not allowed in what OPS proposed. There are 75-foot buildings. A penthouse is a standard thing that goes on top of buildings. My building has a penthouse, but it's basically just an entrance to the roof. It's a small little space that you are not allowed to even see from the street. So it's 75 feet is what we're going for. To your response that 5 feet would be an appropriate height, we're the ANC. We have to respond to what the community says and what the community stirs it for from the comments that we've received and what we voted on last time. That resolution that we passed, we passed the 75-foot stories. I mean, I can just quickly comment what I said last time. We're allowed to build 4 stories right now, but they're not getting built, which means it's very, very difficult to provide housing in Cleveland Park and Woodley. Well, at least in Cleveland Park is what I'll comment on. For my own neighborhood, if others want to comment on it, they can comment on it. Well, your point about the HPRB feedback has not been met by the updated guidelines. I'll let the HPRB board decide that. I think we shouldn't comment if the comments HPRB gave, if those are applicable or not. And then to your second larger comment about why mention the Cleveland Park Historical Society. So they weren't submitted as a comment, they were submitted as alternative guidelines. I think it's important for the HPRB board to know that they weren't developed with community input, and I think that's really the insight that we're providing them. They were a product of the Cleveland Park Historical Society board, and so I think that's important for the ANC to point out that since we represent the community, having competing set of guidelines, whether they're compatible or not, I will not comment on that. Cleveland Park Historical Society can submit their comments and make a point, but alternative development guidelines was really what we were commenting on in the letter.
Just quickly, I'd respond with a point of information. The zoning regulations allow, in addition to the 75 feet, a penthouse story. And under the zoning rules, that can be a mechanical or it could be habitable or a combination of that. And for the first time, OP, does make it clear that 75 feet does get you the additional story, which is, that's the law, but I think everyone needs to be clear on what the possibility is, even if the stated baseline maximum height is 75.
Okay. Any other commissioners? I just want to note that these design guidelines were a requirement of legislation that was moved from the comprehensive plan amendments. So this isn't the opportunity to relitigate all of what has been already done and said over years of public meeting and inputs to get to the potential to upzone. And this is also So just to point out, this is legislation passed by council, signed by the mayor to allow for additional height in these areas. All right, last call for commissioners who haven't spoken yet. None. Okay, we'll open it up to the community. So Bonnie, you're up.
Asking you to unmute one. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Bonnie Lepard. I'm president of the Cleveland Park Historical Society Board of Directors. And I'm not going to go into our differences with the OP guidelines. We've have had lots of time to, and we're submitted comments back in May, and we had over many letters from the community in opposition to OP's guidelines, and 20 people testified. And anyway, we have a lot of people that have concerns about them, but I know where the ANC stands is quite clear, so I won't litigate that with you tonight. But I just wanted to respond to, well, a couple of things. I mean, I think what OP, yes, the council asked, OP to come up with some guidelines. I think these are zoning guidelines. I also want to say that the Cleveland Park Historical Society is all in favor of affordable housing. I don't think these guidelines get us there at all. But more so, what I really want to mention tonight is that the letter that you're sending really does sort of take. You don't need to throw CPHS in there. I don't know why you're doing this. We're not on your agenda. We didn't need to and don't have to go before you. Our guidelines are really an internal process, and I just have to say that it's a document that's based solely on existing preservation regulations and practices. They track really closely the Secretary of, pretty much line for line, the Secretary of Interior's historic preservation standards, DC law that exists, practices, and HPRB's own guidelines. The HPO staff, Steve Calcott, specifically encouraged CPHS to submit its design guidelines for this, for the Connecticut Avenue Historic Corridor for this coming month's HPRB meeting. He wanted the board to consider them for an informational presentation at the same time as OP's development guidelines. He encouraged us to submit them. We'd been working on them for a long time, well before even OP guidelines ever existed. So this is really sort of CPHS has worked on this for some time, but there are many guidelines that are submitted from historic societies or historic associations across the city that are on HPO's website. This is pretty standard. You can find them. It's not unusual for a historical society in the city to submit some guidelines such as these, and they're on the website. They're for informational purposes. And so I don't think you need to throw us under the bus in your letter. We're a nonprofit, a 501c3, a community organization, and this is standard practice across the city to have these type of guidelines submitted to the HPRB for informational purposes. We're not asking for approval of them. We're not, OP is going to ask for approval of theirs, I'm sure, but we're just their informational purposes that help. So I think you should probably take out some of this. It's sort of the kind of unpleasant or unfair comments about the historical society. And one other thing, if I could, I just find it sort of surprising that you would do this. And this is just sort of a standard practice that other historical societies have done across the city.
Thank you, Ms. Lepard. I appreciate it, and I just want to say that I think the ANC, our goal is just to clarify that we have not seen these, and I think that's all we're trying to do to HPRB. If you're saying that the HPO staff in fact asked for these, then they will just ignore that portion of our letter, and I am perfectly fine for that. As far as we know, the OP guidelines were developed in collaboration with HPO. That's the information that had been given to us, and so we just wanted to clarify to the HPRB that those guidelines have not been vetted by the community, and that's essentially what the ANC is trying.
But they're not done that. I think
I know you disagree.
Why put in so much angry or really unpleasant verbiage?
I do not think it's angry or unpleasant, Mr. Park.
I think just say one line.
I'm happy to take this offline later, Ms. Lepard. Thank you.
But, and just so that everybody's aware, yes, this is noticed under 5C or 3C under the HPRB agenda that we received that the ANC is asked to provide comments on. So yes, it's in the informational presentations. There are 2 informational presentations. One is the Connecticut Avenue Development Guidelines, presentation of a final draft. The one directly following that is the design guidelines for Cleveland Park's historic commercial corridor submitted by Cleveland Park Historical Society. So us not commenting on that is almost negligent on the ANC's part when we're noticed this meeting agenda and we see this item on it. To ignore or not input would be neglectful to our obligations to the larger community. So Commissioner Prinzo.
I just have a question. The CPHS guidelines that we're talking about in this letter, were they not brought before any community engagement like the OP ones were? I'm just not sure.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Margaret Letzner.
CPHS has a particular role to play and has had that since the historic district was created. I don't believe that they normally need to present anything to public. I mean, there's no membership. That's not their job. Their job is to present to HPO and to HPRB. So this idea that somehow some public support was necessary for them to weigh in on their expert recommendations is kind of nonsense.
Thank you, Ms. Lenzner.
Okay. All right.
I can call it Commissioner Peggotts if you're.
Oh wait, Mr. Kane has a comment.
Sorry, didn't see it.
Hi, sorry. I'll just be really brief, and I just want to thank the ANC for listening to the community at large. I think they're doing an excellent job of reflecting the needs and interests of the larger group of their constituents, and I really appreciate their work on this issue. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Commissioner Prinzo, are you going to call the question?
I am going to call the
there aren't more
question.
comments, so we have moved it.
Wait, before I go, I just want to thank both you and Commissioner Peggotts. I think you've read those guidelines more times than any of us sitting at this table, so I appreciate the two of you writing this letter.
Okay, are you making a motion to move?
Yes, sorry, I thought I said that.
It's okay. Okay, so the motion's on moving the question for ending debate and moving the letter, which is the question, to a vote. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. The vote on the table is to approve the letter to HPRB regarding the Connecticut Avenue Development Guidelines. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand, and please keep your
Commissioner Peggotts, we need for the letter, we need a roll call.
All right, let's call the roll.
I'll go backwards, I guess. Commissioner Nash.
No.
Commissioner Kripke.
Aye.
Sorry, Commissioner Gordon.
Aye.
Commissioner Siddiqui.
Yes.
Commissioner McCorston.
Aye.
Commissioner Peggotts.
Yes.
I am a yes, and Commissioner Geis.
Yes.
7-1-0.
All right, with that, the motion on the letter passes. Thank you all. And thank you, Commissioner Siddiqui, for your time and work on this. All right.
Point of information, was that the vote for the letter itself or for the calling of the question?
The letter itself, sorry, was that not clear? Okay. Okay, so next on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of a letter to DDOT regarding the notice of intent of the conversion of 2-hour metered parking zone to 30-minute metered parking zone along the 300 and 400 block of Connecticut Avenue Northwest. Commissioner Siddiqui.
Thank you, Commissioner Packets. I pasted the copy of the letter in the chat. So just a bit of background, DDOT did a study in 2013 and identified the Cleveland Park Business District as a place where potentially reduced time limit parking could benefit turnover rates, which means more people get to park in the same amount of spaces. Since then, the ANC has asked repeatedly, and I have cited 2 resolutions in the letter for DDOT to have some time limited parking in Cleveland Park. The needs for these have increased. There's been, if you talk to some of our stores and patrons, for example, Crack Deggery, over 40% of their business per day is done through pickup drop-off. And so there's a big need to have pickup drop-off with the advent of rideshare. There's also a big need. And then also a lot of the service businesses, particularly the ones that I've talked to, being the laundry store as well as the vacuum store, have also had a preference for installing some 30-minute spaces that customers can come in, do quick pickup drop off. There's been, with the 2-hour spots, there's been sort of people parking there and not actually attending the businesses. There's evidence that people go to the zoo after that and don't go to the businesses. I live right across it. I know a bunch of me and my neighbors sometimes park over there as well, and we live here. We're not necessarily going to go there, but anytime we see a spot, we're like, oh, cool, okay, 2 hours. I can just leave it here for a long time. So adding some 30-minute spots was one of the things that we've asked for. When DDOT came back with their proposed notice of intent, what they did was they retained 2-hour parking between Porter and Ordway Streets Northwest, so that'll retain 29 2-hour spots. And then from the portion between Ordway and Macomb, that's where they changed the spots to 30-minute spots. And we discussed this at our Transportation Committee meeting, so I'm not going to re-put up the map and the details, but all of that is linked in our agenda. We took feedback from the community, and some of that feedback is represented in the letter. Well, actually, almost all that feedback is represented in the letter that I've pasted in the chat. Again, we have competing things, so I know that it's one of the things about parking, and I'm quoting a very recent book, is that for parking, we would like to, anyone who drives, anyone who parks always wants to park right in front of the spot that they're going to all the time. That's just not going to be a reality. And so we have to try and match the needs of the neighborhood with what's going on. So Cassandra's telling me I linked the wrong. No, I think I linked the right letter, but so with that, let me tell you some of the stuff that our community and like the ANC wants to propose. So the first blatant thing is that there's not enough 2-hour accessible metered parking options, and so there's really only one right now, which is next to the library. And so we've asked for more 2-hour accessible metered parking options. Again, trying to make sure that parking for the people who need it the most is available. And so we've asked for more zones. I know DDOT has some rules that they have to follow of like safe get off and stuff. And so I'm hoping that they do listen to us and install some of the ones. We've highlighted the places where they don't exist. We also heard from the community that perhaps converting all the 30-minute, all of the parking in that zone to 30-minute parking isn't ideal. And so one of the things we're asking for is to retain some 2-hour parking in those zones. The easiest thing for DDOT to do, according to the conversation we had on Wednesday, was to keep the ones that are immediately on the side streets in front of non-residential buildings, convert those to 2-hour parking. And so we're going to convert those to 2-hour metered zone as well. The other thing the DDOT rep highlighted is that, in fact, all the 30-minute zones are unlimited parking zones, because from the parking app, you can actually extend your 30-minute parking indefinitely. And so really, essentially like what this will do is we'll still have some 2-hour zones. The 30-minute zones will really stop those people that, you know, want to park here and go away for a long time. But the people who live here, who go to the businesses, we're hoping that Cleveland Park Main Street can help inform the businesses, that they can tell their customers that, hey, you can still park, it's more chance you're going to find a spot, and once you find it, it's easier for you to extend it. So we're hoping that Cleveland Park Main Street helps propagate this information so that the businesses have that information. We also asked for new parking spots that where they don't conflict with pedestrian safety. Earlier on, we had asked for some specific spots in locations, but it turned out some of them were really close to crosswalks, or they were close to places of conflict. So we've kind of asked to basically like look at all opportunities to add some more spots. From Main Street, we got input to have 10-minute pickup drop-off spots. DDOT is not doing 15-minute spots anymore. They're doing 10-minute curbside pickup drop-off spots. So we've asked for those 2 on the west side, and sorry, 1 on the west side and 2 on the east side where they're needed more. I know Cassandra has said that you know, they really need 4 on the east side. The problem is if we ask for 4 spots, that'll reduce the parking even more. So because that'll be converted to a 10-minute spot. So if we want to go for 3 or something, open a discussion on that. And then finally, the loading time on the east side is more essential because of the presence of the grocery store. So we've asked them to extend loading time to 60 minutes and then make sure that the loading space is long enough. I believe Cracked Eggery does their loading mostly in the middle of the night, and so they don't do it during the day. So on the west side, there isn't that much requirement for loading. Plus, as soon as the Macklin development comes online, there'll be a new loading zone on that side, so we don't need that much additional loading on the west side. And then finally, you know, really good comment again from Ms. Lenzner right before this meeting to put a comment in about enforcement. So I've added an extra comment that asking DDOT to ensure there's enforcement of these parking regulations as well. So I'll pause there. I know a lot of people went to input into doing this and stuff, and happy to take comments from everyone. So I would like to move this for a vote.
Second.
All right. It's open for discussion. Commissioner Gordon, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to thank, you know, Commissioner Siddiqui and others for the many discussions we've had on this. I think, you know, we're balancing a lot of different needs here, from handicap spots to 30-minute spots for grocery, vacuum, 7-Eleven, laundry, pickup and delivery, you know, Cracked and all of the Door Dashers, and then also trying to have 2-hour spots to support our businesses that needed a little bit longer, like the restaurants and the salons. So I think this letter gets to where we need to be to ask DDOT to take another swipe at this. And I appreciate everybody's patience in going into this. I don't think we'll ever get to a spot where everyone's happy, because you're right, everybody just wants to park right in front of what they want to park at. But I think this has at least will improve the mix of spots from where the first DDOT map was. I was definitely concerned that I wanted 30-minute spots because we need that for quick turns, but at the same time, I'm really conscious of like, we're trying to get all of these great restaurants in here and like new places that are opening. And I want to make sure that to some extent people can park there still, even though I think most people are getting there other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon.
Commissioner Nash.
First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Siddiqui for all the work he's put in on this. And I thought his very comprehensive exposition of all the issues. You know, balancing the kinds of spots that Commissioner Gordon pointed out really is like squeezing a balloon. You know, it's hard to get the mixture right. And I don't think we should be prescriptive, but I do think that balance is important. I would like to see the letter be more explicit on having more of the longer term spots, you know, in the actual heart of the commercial strip on Connecticut Avenue. You know, the fact is we have many people in our community who may not qualify for accessible parking, but are less mobile. And they are going to need more than 30 minutes to pick up a prescription or drop off dry cleaning or maybe get something to eat. And having more, you know, variety of spots in the strip, I think is important. I mean, I love having short-term parking. I wish there were a way to impose an overall cap on the amount of time that cars could stay in the strip. But I do think we need to be more explicit about more longer term parking on the avenue. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Nash, I know we had a back and forth over email. I mean, I also don't want to be prescriptive. Like, I don't want to tell DDOT most of these need to be 2 hours. I do think there's a need for, and again, from feedback, like there is a need for those 30-minute spots. The good news is parking is flexible and amenable. This is not like we're installing whole new infrastructure. It's just essentially signs. So I'm hoping that if this ends up being too much one way or the other way, we can go back and revisit it. So I think I think given that DDOT has been engaged on this, I do want to see what their second iteration looks like before us sort of prescribing most spots one way or the other. We've asked for more spots and let's see what they said.
And just to add on to that, there's also prescriptive ways that they need to set this up for it to be enforceable by DDOT and DPW. So I'm sure they'll accommodate it as best they can, but it can't be like a whole mishmash. Otherwise, it's too hard to enforce anything. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Kripke?
Just a quick note to say that it is like threading a needle to try to get it right, given all the comments from so many different interests on this. These parking spots and really all the public space in our neighborhood, and especially in Cleveland Park commercial area, is so highly contested. So I mean, there's really no right solution. It's a compromise between different interests. And so I appreciate what Commissioner Siddiqui is trying to do here. I think we're getting close to what the best guess at the moment. And as he points out, these are signs. If it's a disaster, we'll come back and try to revisit it. But I think we should try it, or something like this anyway.
Great. Thank you. Cassandra?
I just want to say, I really appreciate the work that Commissioner Siddiqui has put into this. I appreciate that you have listened. You've really listened. You're right. We're not going to have a perfect solution. We don't have all the perfect amount of parking for everybody. I will just say I would like one more non-PUDO 10-minute on the east side. So, but I think.
Would you like to go to 3? So if you're saying, and I mean, if that'll take away a parking spot. So Cassandra, if you really believe it's needed.
No, but because of the pandemic, so much of business is like people.
Well, let me ask you this question. Imagine there's a 30-minute spot. Sorry, I know Commissioner Paggett, don't want us to be back and forth. But let me just ask, if there's a 30-minute spot, it's more likely to be turned over. Do you think that'll be enough, or would you still require another pickup drop-off?
You know what? You're right. We can see what happens. And if it's not working, then we can go to DDOT and we can ask to take one of the spots back.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not irrevocable.
Cassandra, is the Main Street going to submit their own comments to the NOI?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's the spot for that. Because we also have to take into the needs, a number of residents have brought up safety concerns with getting some of these extra asks for parking too close to where they're walking. Steve. Oh, did we ask him to unmute?
Oh, I clicked it
Asking
once.
him now.
Fabulous. So, one quick anecdote. One of my proudest possessions when my grandfather passed away was this timer that he had. He kept on his belt, and it was a 1 minute, it's 1 hour timer, and it was used in Brooklyn so that you knew to run out and feed the meter, right? It was really cool. And my son broke it recently. But anyway, couple of things. So the first thing is, I thought that the goal here was to be able to create a parking regime so that when people wanted to go and visit the strip, that they had a reasonable degree of assurance that they were going to be able to get a spot. And philosophically, the 30%, the 30-minute limit makes sense to be able to do that. So this is kind of a meander. Now, I know that DDOT manages that type of thing by using something they call performance parking, by raising the rates to make it more difficult for people who might want to stay for a longer period of time during high demand. So I guess this is my way of saying that I think that letter should really ask that DDOT provide some more, because everyone's talking about we can readjust it, we can readjust it, we can readjust it. But it really seems like DDOT ought to be able to adjust this on the fly by doing performance pricing. So I didn't see that as part of the letter, which I otherwise love. And so that might be something to consider asking DDOT to do. But the other thing is the whole 30-minute thing and your ability to use that buzzer that my grandfather had in your phone app and stay there for 1 hour, 2 hours, as long as you're smart enough to remember to keep upping this, that seems antithetical to this whole idea of creating more spaces that are available that keep turning over. So I'm sort of surprised that DDOT lets that happen in the parking app, but I'm also even more surprised that the ANC would encourage that to continue. So those are my comments.
Thank you.
So I'll quickly say, if commissioners are okay, I'm happy to add a quote on there on, I don't know. Yeah. So I'm happy to add that phrase. And then the second thing, regarding why the ANC would encourage this, I think this just to tell at least the members of the community, like, calm their fears a little bit about that they can park there longer. I mean, I agree. I don't think we should be encouraging people to drive there more. But at the same time, we need to balance out, people in the community and other things. So this is just, again, trying to get the balance through, Mr. Seelig. But if others agree, I'm happy to add something about performance parking standards. Is that what you called it, Mr. Seelig? Or if you have a link, you can give it to me. Okay, thank you.
Along that note, Stephen Schwartz asked in the chat, had a question about parking guidance of 30 minutes or whatnot, time for certain times of the day or 24/7. This is kind of with that performance-based demand pricing, which is it's a lot more expensive to implement because of the technology that's involved in it. But this goes to what Steve is suggesting too, is that there was a pilot program tested in Chinatown based on this model. And that's definitely a much bigger area of territory of a lot more action and loading zones and needs for parking that vary more greatly than over here, where it is more isolated. So hopefully that helped. Margaret.
I have a question about pickup and drop off. Is there any place where there are designated pickup and drop off spots in an area that is as densely parked as that little strip on Connecticut Avenue?
Technically, we are those spots. So some of our businesses have pickup drop-off spot signs. You might see the Cracked Eggery one over there on Saturdays, I believe, and Sundays, I think sometimes. The problem is DDOT, like everything else, the pickup drop-off program is going away. So it's and it's being replaced by this 10-minute curbside loading, unloading. And they do have those, the 10-minute curbside loading, unloading, I believe, is on 14th Street. So that's where they've been testing it out, and they'll hopefully test it out here as well. But even right now in our neighborhood, there do exist 15-minute PUDOs.
But I see all the time double parked cars going in to pick up usually, food to carry out. Even though there may be on the curb a parking place, that one is occupied. So 2 or 3 cars will just double park. How do you keep people I mean, have you talked to DoorDash and Uber and Lyft to say, how does this work for your guys? Because I think they don't care.
No, you're right. They don't care. And honestly, Miss Lenzner, the only thing that works is reduce the number of cars. As long as people will be
Right,
driving.
But maybe,
yeah.
I just think it's pie in the sky dreaming to assume that you can designate pick up and drop off spots and assume that they're going to get used for that. That's my concern.
I agree. This is why we need to reduce the number of cars. So we can go from there.
Yeah, well, let's get rid of Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash. That would take care of it.
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Linder.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments from the community on this? Commissioner Siddiqui, so you're going to add the line or about the demand-based parking.
I've added it in, so it's now in the last bullet. Ensure robust enforcement of new parking zone as soon as possible by working with Department of Public Works and implement performance-based parking measures that change pricing according to parking demand.
Okay, are there any objections from the commissioners to adding that to the letter? Okay, I see none.
Guess we can move to a vote. Oh, sorry. Oh, Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I will support this in the end, but with some reluctance, but again, with appreciation for all the work that's gone in. This is going to be a work in progress, and we're going to have to stay on DDOT and monitor it. And, without being prescriptive, I think advocate and try to balance all the various needs. And we're going to need enforcement. And then, finally, one thing that I think we should be a bit concerned about is at the meeting last week, DDOT's representative, when asked, well, what other areas have tried this and what has their experience been, said that we're kind of the first one. We're the first neighborhood. I mean, he mentioned how curbside parking is prohibited in the Wharf area where there are a lot of parking garages. And the chair just pointed out that it may have been tried on a basis in Chinatown where there are a lot of parking garages. But we're kind of the test case for a strip of our area where, our businesses are facing some challenges. So let's let it go forward, but let's stay on it and, get DDOT to adjust and to enforce.
Commissioner Prinzo?
I'd like to call the question.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. All those in favor of calling the question and moving to the vote, raise your hand or say aye. All right, I'm seeing all 8 hands. So this one is also going to have to be a roll call vote to report into the letter. So Commissioner Prinzo.
Commissioner Geis.
Yes.
I am voting yes. Commissioner Paget.
Yes.
Commissioner McCorston.
Yes.
Commissioner Siddiqui.
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner Kripke.
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
8-0-0.
All right, the motion passes. The letter is approved to send on to DDOT. Commissioner Siddiqui, thank you again so much for your time and patience in incorporating many conflicting needs into this letter. All right. So moving right along to another Commissioner Siddiqui led letter, the ANC3C letter reiterating support for Concept C on Connecticut Avenue and urging District Department of Transportation, DDOT, to expedite implementation on Connecticut Avenue.
Yeah, so this is again a letter. It's just reiterating the support we've had for the bike lanes from previous, well, not bike lanes, Concept C overall from previous resolutions. I will say that We've received a lot of emails about this in recent. I know one of my constituents' son was struck by a car, and of course the car drove away while her son was on a bicycle. Some of you were CC'd on that email. So this has really reached a fever pitch in the community. They really want to see this implementation happen as soon as possible. So again, there's nothing new in this letter. It's just reiteration of requesting DDOT to move fast with this. I'm presented this to the Transportation Committee. I know Commissioner Nash expressed his personal concerns about this, but beyond that, I haven't heard any other concerns. So yes, I would like to move this for a vote to be sent to DDOT.
Okay.
All right.
I think Commissioner Prinzo said second, but we couldn't hear him.
He did. I heard him.
Okay, good.
All right. Any commissioners have comments or discussion on this? Commissioner Prinzo.
I would just like to add.
I'm sorry. There's Commissioner Kripke, can you mute your? Thank you. Okay.
I would just like to add that I know that there's a lot of back and forth on this issue, and there's a very big back and forth when it comes to the issue of disabled people, of which I am a member of the disabled community very proudly. I am extremely visually impaired. I can legally operate a motor vehicle. However, I do not find it comfortable to operate a motor vehicle. And yesterday I tried biking for the first time in Southeast, where they have very lovely bike lanes, and it was a very pleasurable experience because I was able to freely move without fear of losing my life or injuring somebody else in the process. And I do think that it's important that we do reiterate our support for protected bike lanes as an alternative method of transportation in the city. But that's just my input.
Thank you. Commissioner McCorson.
Thank you, Chair Pagets, and thank you, Commissioner Prinzo, for those remarks. Very interesting. So I support this letter, and I apologize for not commenting on the text itself earlier, but I'm wondering if we could work in a little more language along the lines of the importance of public safety as the framing for this. So I see a couple times it's mentioned how we want to make Connecticut Avenue safer for everybody, which is the case. But I really think this whole discussion should be framed more strongly as a matter of public safety. When there's a shooting, it's indisputably a matter of public safety. And given the number of accidents that we've seen along Connecticut Ave just this year, I feel that this should also be explicitly listed as a matter of public safety.
I wouldn't object to that, Commissioner McCorson. Do you have suggested language? You're welcome to suggest directly in the text, or if you send it to me, I'm happy to add it to the letter. And you don't have to do it right away. We can.
Okay.
Well, I guess we have to do it before we vote.
So, I mean, the first two paragraphs are, I think, fine, but maybe it feels like the last two, the conclusion, it's saying this idea of public safety. So maybe just starting off the third paragraph with something along the lines of the, public safety in our community is our top concern, or is paramount. Yeah, is paramount is good.
Okay. So public safety of our community is a concern of the ANC, and we view this as a public safety issue.
Yeah, that would be great.
I added that sentence in to the letter for anyone who would like to see it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash?
Thanks. I do support protected bike lanes as alternative means of transportation and as an important element DDOT's toolkit. But as you know, I do think option C requires more work. And, while I acknowledge that the majority of the ANC has in the past supported option C, and so I wonder why the need to weigh in now. I think if the commission weighs in at all, it would be useful to ask DDOT to revalidate some of the assumptions that they used when they proposed option C. Two things have changed since then. First of all, Beach Drive, which was assumed to stay open as an alternative route for traffic from upper northwest and the suburbs south, is now closed. And the service lane, which DDOT proposed and was constructing as a shared space, including for vehicles and for parking, is now to be given over to exclusively pedestrian use, which also affects the parking situation on Connecticut Avenue. So I don't know how all this sorts out, but I do feel that DDOT needs to go back and revalidate some of its assumptions, and that more work needs to be done in option C. Thanks.
Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, I think so I'm in support of option C as the options go. I think this letter makes a lot of sense. I think the only thing I would want to bring up and surface here, and it doesn't need to go in the letter, but is just the construction exhaustion. And I wish if they were able to if they were going to do something, I wish they would do it all together as opposed to starting a whole nother construction project on it. So I know we kind of have that in there that is kind of pushing them to make a decision, but it's, we certainly have some Ordway and Connecticut exhaustion. I know others do as well. So just registering that at this point.
Trust me, I have exhaustion from that as well. And yeah, I mean, the good news from that perspective, from general safety perspective, is seems like construction won't start till 2028. So we'll see. But I feel like even if we tell them to expedite it, it won't happen for at least another 2 years. So that's our best case scenario. Commissioner Geis.
I think Commissioner Kripke was before me.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm putting my hand up, so you might not see the thing. Thanks, Commissioner Geis. Just to say that some things have changed in our community in terms of traffic, but what hasn't changed is how unsafe Connecticut Avenue is for many users, and especially for bicyclists, and I have to say, especially for kids. And some of the opponents of the bike lanes claim that there are no bicyclists in the city or on Connecticut Avenue, but it's just not true. And I just want to say that I have been sitting at the Cleveland Park Library working on weekdays, and I see a lot of cyclists and scooters and e-bikes going by. I counted 45 just the other day in 1 hour, which isn't, it's not as many as cars, but it's a lot of people riding on that street in a very dangerous situation. And they include parents with their kids on the back. They include teenagers who are biking around. And so it's a very dangerous situation. And for me, there's an urgency about it because it's scary to be on that street as a cyclist. And I want safe accommodation for the bicyclists. So the reason I think this letter is important is to reiterate our view that we need a safe Connecticut Avenue for all the users and to be inclusive, and that I feel it's urgent because we are gonna have people hurt in the time between we've decided to build a safer Connecticut Avenue and the time they actually do it. And as Commissioner Siddiqui noted, a kid got run over days ago, and accidents on that street are daily happening. People are dying on Connecticut Avenue, and the city isn't doing enough and isn't doing it urgently. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kripke. Commissioner Geis?
Thank you. Also, thank you, Commissioner Kripke, for sharing. I really appreciated that. And I'm incredibly sympathetic to, the discussion about, 45 people, however many people it is in an hour. I don't know that we need to be counting to see if a group is large enough to decide that it needs to be safe enough. we 100% need to make this a safe space for everyone to live in the community. I don't know if folks saw, I saw looking at the proposed timeline from DDOT, it's looking like the Apollo mission will have been completed in a shorter time span than the Connecticut Avenue bike lane project, which is, you know, something to say that we were able to go to the moon faster than build a bike lane on Connecticut Avenue. We need to get this done. We need to do it fast. I'm full support of this letter. Yeah, I could go on, but.
Thank you, Commissioner Geis.
I just want to
Seems
add
like-
that, sorry. I just want to add that there's a lot out there seemingly in the media about how very little people bike commute via bike. That's just false, because we're taking into account people who live in a 50-mile radius of the District of Columbia. That the denominator is just wrong. The advisory neighborhood commissions that voted on this, our residents are directly affected by how unsafe this road is, and we voted in overwhelming support. No residents of Maryland voted for us, so their traffic, hopefully they decide to take a better route. We do have these underground tunnels for transporting people directly under Connecticut Avenue, the Metro Rail. I am not a cyclist, radical or otherwise. I would like to be able to ride the bike down Connecticut from where I live to the Woodley Park Metro and jump on the rail from there. I cannot do that right now. It is just entirely unsafe, even though it's only half a mile. And that's not fair for me and everybody else around me that wants to do those short last mile trips like that.
Thank you, Commissioner Pagets. I believe we're done with commissioner comments, so would anyone from the community like to comment? Please raise your hand and we'll ask you to unmute. Ms. Lenzner, I'm asking you to unmute.
I noticed in the letter that you have proposed a reference to Cleveland Park Community Association's support from 2.5 years ago. At that time, I read that letter carefully, the letter that CPCA President Bar Weiner wrote. It does not indicate support specifically for bike lanes. So I think it's a mistake to imply or suggest that it does.
I just, so Ms. Lenzner, if you read the letter carefully, all I have said is the majority of the members of the Cleveland Park Community Association. I did not say that the CPCA supports it.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say even that the majority, but the majority.
There was a poll directly in that letter.
Yeah, and the poll that
Yes.
was referred to had to do with the question of concept C or concept B. And as has been pointed out, a lot has changed in the last 2.5 years. The other thing that I think is, so I don't know what the point is of adding that in. If the Cleveland Park Community Association wants to weigh in, they can do that. But I'm not sure that it's appropriate. If you read the letter that President Weiner sent 2.5 years ago, it's quite specific about the need for further analysis of many issues.
Read that letter and then DDOT can read that if they need to. So thank you, Ms. Lenzner. Commissioner Prinzo.
I'm happy to call the question.
All right, I will second.
All right, so the vote right now is on calling the question and ending debate on this. So all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye, and then we'll move to a vote. If all those are in favor, they are, as the majority. So again, with this being a letter We do need to include the vote tally in it. So Commissioner Prinzo, the roll.
Commissioner Nash,
No.
Commissioner Cookie,
He raised his hand in favor.
It is a yes.
sorry, Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Siddiqui,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner McCorson,
Yes.
Commissioner Paggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Prinzo is a yes, and Commissioner Geis.
Also, yes.
That will be 7-1-0.
All right, the letter passes. Again, Commissioner Siddiqui, thank you. We're probably going to have to give you next month off at this rate. Or give you a raise. Oh, wait.
Full my salary.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next item in the agenda, we have a discussion on the reinstallation of the trash enclosure at 2616 Connecticut Avenue. So again, we're not going to vote on the letter this month, and Commissioner Prinzo will go over what we are going to do and what this is. Is that okay, Commissioner Prinzo, or did you want me to?
No, that's fine. So we have the potential of adding a grocery store in Woodley Park. However, it would require the reinstallation of a pre-existing trash enclosure that was located on 24th Street Northwest. For those who don't know, this is the property that used to house the Ace Hardware. We originally had this letter on consent, given that for years the ANC, especially since I've gotten here in January, the one thing that Woodley Park residents ask for is a grocery store. We did, however, receive some pushback from some of my friends, but that's okay. So we have moved it to a different timeline. We are introducing this now here in this meeting. And then once the discussion is over, I will motion to punt this to the Planning, Zoning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee meeting on, I believe it's October 2nd, via Zoom. And then we will action a vote on the letter or a different letter, depending on community engagement, at our October meeting, which is October 23rd. Yeah, so I think Steve and Maurice are here. Steve and Maurice represent the building. If you could raise your hand so I can see you.
Will either of you need to present or share your screens?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see him.
I see them both.
I've asked them both to unmute.
Hello. Okay. I'm Steve Combs. Sorry, unmute button wasn't working. No, we don't have any materials to share today. That's something that's in process we are working on. But just a kind of really quick update. I know you guys are looking like you're late on time. We found out that Ace Hardware was not renewing 2 years ago, and we've been marketing that space for the last 2 years. By the way, I'm a real estate broker. I work with KLMB, and I know I've worked with several of you over the years because I've been doing leasing in the neighborhoods for 35 years. Anyway, it's been a very, very difficult environment leasing space in Woodley Park. And we have been working on a lease transaction for, I'd say, the past 9 months with a upscale gourmet grocer that wants to locate in this space. The space is small. It's only 3,900 square feet, which is small for a grocer. Anyway, we have a deal that virtually ready to be negotiated, ready to be signed, and there's only one drawback. And the drawback is that outdoor trash area got taken away by a negotiation that went on with McDonald's that we were unaware of. So anyway, I believe the only way that we're going to be able to get this deal done would be to reconstruct this enclosure for the trash out on 24th Street. And Maurice Kreinler is the owner of the building. He's here, as he can speak as well. But like I said, we're willing to do whatever the neighborhood wants to make this thing nice, make it pretty. But unfortunately, we just don't think we're going to be able to get this lease done with the grocer unless we get this outdoor trash area, because the space is too small for them to store it inside.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Hi, can I add something to that?
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Maurice Kreindler. I am one of the owners of the building at 2616 that has McDonald's downstairs and had Ace upstairs. We've owned the property for about 23 years now. And just for historical fact, that store was a CVS store from 1923 until about 2010 or 2012, when they moved across the street. By a coincidence in life, I used to work for CVS many, many years ago, and I left there in 1990. And when I left there, the store had trash containers in the rear, as did McDonald's. Ace had them also in the rear, as did McDonald's. So to say that they were grandfathered is absolutely correct. Anyway, McDonald's decided to do a renovation, and they wanted the city to buy into what they wanted to do on the public space at the front, which truthfully, they did a nice job. It certainly looks better than it did. But as one of the bargaining chips with the city, McDonald's, without notifying us, told the city that they would take away the dumpsters. And since the building was empty because Ace had moved out, no one noticed and no one seemed to care. Anyway, we were then told by zoning attorneys that we now have to go back to public space to reinstate what we had. And we made an application. In the application, we specifically asked for, I think I sent it to Commissioner Prinzo, a copy of what we did, but we specifically asked for the right to store dumpsters or trash roll-off containers in the back up against the building, but we did not specify what kind of enclosure to do, because frankly, we have no problem with the enclosure short of, a gold link chain fence or something like that. We would do just about anything that makes, that satisfies the community, because, as a citizen, as well as a property owner, I recognize that, trash is not attractive. Although I will say that Chipotle does a fairly ugly job on Calvert Street. Anyway, we're flexible, and we figured that we would wait and let both the ANC Citizens Association and Public Space tell us what was appropriate for enclosing it. Previously they had told us to do a 42-inch fence, which we did because they told us to do it, but truthfully, it did absolutely nothing. I mean, it was a little bit higher than hip height, and it didn't hide anything. Anyway, that's where we're at. We have an application in to the public space, and we have a hearing set for, believe it's November 16th. And we would very much appreciate if the ANC would see its way to giving us your support. I'm assuming if we don't get the support, we can't do this deal. We will end up eventually finding a tenant, and tenant may be a by right tenant, which doesn't need a trash enclosure in the back. And, I guess, we don't know what we would get, but it might not be as attractive to the neighborhood as having a upscale grocery store. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll start with commissioners. Commissioner Paggett, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question about, my understanding is the trash requirements, the amount of storage is different based on a different type of commercial retail use. and that this retail space isn't large enough to meet that requirement within the interior of this space, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
That is correct. Okay, and those are set by DC Public Health, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what is set by DC Public Health.
The trash code requirements.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. No, that code is not met by DC Health. You know, any tenant can store their trash indoors. That's allowed. The problem is that this store, the space is just too small to house a proper grocer that's going to, you know, be able to serve, you know, the items that the neighbors want, like produce and all their items. It's just too small. This particular operator, you know, he has other stores that are as large as 10,000 square feet. He just sees such an opportunity in this marketplace in the Woodley Park. And, you know, and I've been doing leasing in Woodley Park, you know, since I got into the business in the early 90s. And I just know that a grocer was something the neighbors always wanted. And we were really hoping, you know, that would be accepted here. And unfortunately, again, the only way we can make that happen is to put the trash containers outdoors.
I mean, in fact, I would just add to what Steve said, is that in a meeting that we had recently with the operator, I said to him, listen, it's all a question of money, isn't it? I said, if we reduce the rent by taking, let's say, we assume that you would need 400 square feet, 10% of the space for trash, and we reduce the rent that we had agreed to by 10%, would you consider doing it? He said, I can't do the store, period. End of story.
Commissioner, oh, sorry, Commissioner Rodriguez, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you for the clarifications.
Commissioner Gordon.
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm so excited for the potential of an upscale grocery store for Woodley Park. This makes total sense to me. Like, that space is not huge. There's certainly no room for it to go inside, do something like that, much less would I think people want it inside. So I think to me, it makes total sense to make this happen, to try to do what we can to close this deal and get this business in and open in Woodley Park. So I think, you know, to the extent my fellow commissioners, you know what we need to do or what needs to happen there, I just want to reiterate my support for that. And I think it's a much needed, you know, addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Siddiqui.
Just want to echo what Commissioner Gordon said. I mean, I am the Cleveland Park Commissioner, but I can tell you, even when I was campaigning in Cleveland Park, the one thing people said was Woodley Park needs a grocery store. Whenever I talk to anyone, the thing they say is Woodley Park needs a grocery store. Woodley Park has one of the highest rates of seniors who are food insecure. One primary reason for that is Woodley Park needs a grocery store. Woodley Park, I know, has like recently become Foodley Park because of all the wonderful restaurants opening and stuff. But I can tell you that this is one thing that Woodley Park really needs. And I really want to support this. This is, you know, it's almost as if, I mean, I say this, it's almost as if an uptown owner has fallen in Woodley Park's lap. And I really, you know, if this happened here, we would have not even, this would not even blocked it at all, not even tried to like talk through this. I mean, grocery stores need a trash can outside. Like, you're not going to have a grocery store if you're not willing to have a trash can outside. So I am actually so excited for this. And I'm going to tell you, like, for me personally, like, I am definitely not going to vote against a grocery store or even try and block it. This is like and I was like, you know, honestly, Commissioner Prinzo, Commissioner Packets, I was disappointed that this isn't up for a vote tonight. I want to vote tonight and approve it. But, you know, I know you have to listen to your constituents, and I know we have to go through that, but I want everyone to know, anyone who is against this, you might say you're blocking trash, but what you're really blocking is a grocery store. And that ace will remain empty, and God forbid a mattress store might open in there.
We do have mattress stores that we've had conversations with.
I cannot believe you're talking to mattress stores. Okay, this is really just, and you know, this is like, I know this all seems minor, like this is an ANC committee meeting. This is where power is, right? Like, if we don't pass this, next time someone asks, why don't we have a grocery store? I'll say it was because of the ANC.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Siddiqui. Commissioner Geis.
Thank you. I'll start by saying, you know what they say about mattress stores. Thank you, Commissioner Gordon, Commissioner Siddiqui, for your comments there. Woodley Park needs a grocery store for all these reasons. Like, you shouldn't call it a food desert. Like, that makes no sense. There should not be food insecurity in our neighborhood. Like, this needs to happen. This is something that the community has dealt with for decades. We've had this trash collection in place in this way. This is a recent history that we can. This needs to go through, and I'm in complete support. And when this comes up for its vote, I'll be in support of that. In between now and then, I'll be talking to folks in the community about this, but I've heard nothing from people in the community saying that they support this.
Okay. Any other commissioners want to make a comment, question, concern?
Oh, I just had one
Commissioner
more.
Packard? Yes.
Just to add, I mean, I've been on the commission long enough to have heard basically every single person who commented on the Wardman, support or otherwise, say, really wish this had a grocery store coming with it to the project. Every single person. Unfortunately, that was not something that was feasible during that project because the owner didn't want to go through the zoning change to make that happen, because that would have put the project at risk, and could have had nothing built at all. So this is an opportunity that, you know, and it's great to hear that the building owner is willing to work with the community to make it look way better than the previous iteration. So to throw out the opportunity of a grocery store because of a trash enclosure and to possibly never have this opportunity again is just, it's difficult. And this is why we want to make sure everybody's aware of the trade-offs here. And I feel like Commissioner Gordon is ready to take this grocery store to Cleveland Park if Woodley.
I support. No, we're good here on grocery stores. You need them.
Thank you. Thank you.
John. Great. You should be able to unmute now.
Yes, thank you. You're John Goodman. I live in Woodley Park. At the moment, I'm the president of the Woodley Park Community Association. I would love a grocery store, another grocery store. We already have one, but it's small. What I don't love is rats that came with the trash enclosure we had. I don't like the bad smells that came from the trash enclosure that we had. So if we can get a grocery store that doesn't bring along the rats and the bad smells, and the bad smells are an issue in particular because there is a sidewalk cafe immediately next to the area where the trash might go, everybody would be happy. So the grocery store, no rats, no stench would be the end result I think everybody would want. There is inside McDonald's a cool trash room that they built when they did the renovation. It was intended to service both McDonald's and Ace. So it was built with enough space to handle the trash from both of the tenants. I don't know if you have looked at that to see if it would handle the needs of the grocery, or if it could be made a bit bigger or reconfigured in some way to take care of the grocer's trash needs. And we would be delighted. When I say we, I mean any number of members of the community would be delighted to work with you, your tenant, whomever, and obviously the commissioners to try to find a way to get to the right answer, which would be, in our view, a grocer and no rats.
Thank you. Commissioner Geis, is that a new hand or an old hand?
No.
Okay. Robert, I will ask you to unmute. Oh, there you go.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to echo some of the comments that John made. So Woodley Park Main Street this year has been working with a number of the businesses on that side and the property owners on that side of Connecticut Avenue. During the WPCA meeting, a number of people raised the rats issue, and one of the points that I made is that I have budget reserved for potentially purchasing a trash compactor, one or multiple. I've reached out to DSLBD. And I think that that's probably a much better solution than a dumpster would be. But that's something that we're definitely willing to work with everyone on.
Oh, keep going away. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Oh, I think,
Oh.
Steve, are you trying to answer a question?
Oh, sorry. There you are.
No, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't unmute either. I'm sorry, Maurice, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was simply going to say that with respect to the rats, we own other properties in the city, and truthfully, Woodley Park is not exclusive to the rat. The rats are not exclusive to Woodley Park. They're all over the city, and wherever there's food, there are going to be rats. Now, there are two things that we have found. The first thing is that and the properties that we own in the city, we have the trash pulled 6 days a week. It really reduces the rat population because there's just nothing there to feed for them when they want to feed at night. And the second thing is the compactor is absolutely going to be part of his operation because there's just so much cardboard. It has to be compacted, but there is trash that even when it gets compacted is going to be attractive to rats. And the other thing we'll do is we will have a pest control service servicing the properties continuously, or servicing the property continuously. But at the end of the rainbow, I can't promise you that there's going to be no rats in sight.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to answer a direct question from John Goodman. We actually met with the tenant today at 3 o'clock this afternoon in the space, and we walked down into McDonald's trash room and we said, can we make this work? And he said, absolutely not. It's just the space is not big enough. We're trying, any way possible that we can make this happen. And one of the issues is that, McDonald's doesn't really produce a lot of trash, and neither did Ace. Ace produced mostly cardboard, but the grocer is going to produce more trash than both tenants, and he's and we're willing to have that picked up 6 days a week to alleviate any potential issues with that. Thanks.
John, before I go to you, if there's anybody else, just so we can give everybody a first run. If not, I will defer to John. Or Robert, is that a new hand or an old hand? Perfect. John, I will defer to Commissioner Pat. There's a lot going on here. John, I'll defer to you first.
I know that the McDonald's had trash picked up on a regular basis and all of that, but rats were still a major problem out behind that shop and in the patio in the restaurant next door. So just doing what you did before, I don't think it's going to cut it. But I would love to, as I said, talk to you all more about all of this.
Commissioner Peggis.
Yeah, so I would like to move that we refer this matter to the Planning, Zoning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee for further discussion. So do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of moving to planning, zoning, housing, economic development. I'm seeing all of the commissioners with their hands up. So this will move to that committee meeting with hopefully more information and further discussion to be held on October 2nd via Zoom starting at 6:30 p.m. And this would be, I believe, if my co-chair, Commissioner Gordon, is in agreement, the first item on the agenda. We don't have any others yet. But thank you all for your time and inputs on this. So yeah, this would be really great for the neighborhood and really appreciate you working through this with us.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes, no, it doesn't. I lied. Not on purpose. So the next item is discussion on the establishment of ANC3C Public Safety Committee. This is Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Pagets, and I'll try to keep this short because this is really an October item, but I wanted to surface it for everyone's attention and feedback. So I plan to bring forward in October a charter for the ANC's consideration and hopefully approval to create a public safety committee. I think this is an issue that needs more focus from us, and as you can see, committees are an important vehicle to help bring that focus, as well as opportunity for constituents to voice their concerns outside of ANC meetings. I'm hearing about this issue with just greater frequency from my constituents, and I suspect that other commissioners are too. We know that crime has been increasing, including in this ANC, from what constituents say, from what our businesses are experiencing, from MPD's own statistics, maybe even from our own experiences. There have been 2 well-attended community forums on crime in the last couple or 3 weeks, one of which was at the library. And, I was struck by a couple of things. First, there's acknowledgement that we in this ANC are in a more fortunate position than many other areas of the city that have always experienced and more recently experienced a real increase in violent crime. But our area is not immune itself, whether it's violent crimes within the ANC or on our, just on the edges, to other kinds of crime, to I've had constituents, and I believe so has Commissioner Kripke, who themselves have been, repeated, experienced, thefts from autos and other things. What struck me as well, though, was, constituents who said this does feel different. There's more, and, I think all of us support walkable communities. And yet, people were saying that they, there are routes and things that they used to walk to, but now they drive even a short distance for their kids or for themselves. And in fact, there were anecdotes about that in a recent Washington Post article. So I think that standing up a public safety committee, as other ANCs have done, will, assist us in bringing more focus to this, and also to, I think help identify practical solutions, whether that is, getting more beat cops in our business districts, like on, in Woodley Park and in Cleveland Park, or reinstituting a bike patrol on Connecticut Avenue, which, the commander of the 2nd District says he no longer is the resources for, and working with our council member, hopefully to look at other solutions that would benefit our area. I mean, what Commander Branch said is that our 2nd District is so large, it encompasses, all of Ward 3, Georgetown, most of downtown, most of official Washington, almost to Capitol Hill, all areas some distance from the 2nd District. So perhaps MPD and the council can look at whether smaller, more focused districts would result in less officer time, say, spent in transit and more on patrol. But anyway, the Public Safety Committee will help the ANC work more closely to partner with community groups like Main Street and the Cleveland Park Community Association, which, you know, has brought some needed attention to this issue. I've discussed this with some of you, and I'm grateful for Commissioner Prinzo's strong support and interest in helping to lead this effort. And I hope that you all will also support this. And as I mentioned, I'll circulate a draft charter to be voted on at the next ANC meeting. I've been, you know, reviewing other ANC efforts, and I think a simple and straightforward mandate may be the best approach, but am very interested in your thoughts on that. And again, if residents are interested in this community, assuming that it is stood up in October, please contact me or Commissioner Prinzo, or write directly to the ANC, including your commissioner at all at ANC3C.org. So thanks.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to discussion briefly amongst the commissioners. My comment right now is that I hope the charter will include things that aren't strictly MPD focused, that are on that's right now you seem to be talking about reactive and police focused measures. I'm hoping that there's a more robust remit regarding other chances for more outreach to putting people in touch with opportunities and things like that. That's my suggestion and comment, and happy to further those thoughts with you in the interim before our next meeting.
Thanks for that. And just to address specifically, I certainly think that it would be helpful for the committee to do. And I didn't mean to have a focus, by the way, even on public safety solely on police. I mean, it should look at, you know, other forms of response as well, whether for behavior, but obviously, you know, fire and EMS would be within its remit.
Okay, Commissioner Prinzo.
I just wanted to say that Commissioner Nash and I had a conversation about this. I believe it was last week, and I do think, you know, it's a good idea to have for our ANC. I was at the H Street Festival this weekend. I met with I believe she's the new director of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or something along those lines. And even, you know, like, just to Commissioner Paggett's point, like, there are programs within DC government that are working to address the issue at hand, and I think it would be interesting to hear from them as well. So I do look forward to working with Commissioner Nash on this.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I'll keep it short since I think we're kind of all on the same page, but I also discussed it. I'm on board with it. I said, no, it's certainly something that, you know, is probably one of the second to restaurants and construction is probably what people sort of reach out to me most about. And so, you know, I'd love to be more closely aligned with what's happening and responses, and being able to facilitate better responses, hopefully, than I have in the past on some of the public safety issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Siddiqui.
Yeah, I just want to thank Commissioner Nash for starting this off, and Commissioner Prinzo for also jumping on this. I think it's great. I already have a constituent who's interested, so let me know when you're looking for members, and I will pass along the name. I think she'll be a great addition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Robert, I'll get to you after Commissioner Kripke.
Just quick. Thanks for this idea. I really like it. I think I mentioned this to a few of my fellow commissioners, but I'm really interested in emergency prep and risk reduction for the neighborhood. And I wonder if that might be something you might want to take up in this committee. I would be really eager to help with that, or even lead work to try to make sure that we have good emergency preparation, emergency planning.
Did he freeze?
I think he froze, but anticipating what he might have finished saying, I really appreciate the suggestion and agree, and should be part of the committee's mandate.
Great. Thank you. Any other want to add anything at this time? No? Robert?
Yeah, I just want to second it as everyone else has, and thank Commissioners Nash and Prinzo for taking the lead on this. Anything with anything in the area of drug abuse, homelessness, theft, these things have all been brought to me, and it's very difficult for me to do much more than organize trainings for things like Narcan and CPR. So having a more concrete way of addressing this, I think, is necessary, because all of these programs all these issues are becoming much more salient in the community, to put it lightly.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community want to add anything to this conversation? Cassandra.
How would this differ from what the CPCA is already doing with their safety committee? Just curious.
I just my response is I see it being an effective partner with CPCA and hopefully Main Street, both in Woodley and Cleveland Park. I think it needs commission focus, because we can help to bring focus in the government agencies. But I see it working very closely with CPCA, and really want to thank and commend some of the individuals there who have really pushed this issue front and center, and have organized the community fora that have been useful in recent weeks.
Well, if you'd like some business owners to be involved, I'd be happy to reach out to people.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And also, like, a point of clarification, if we can here, we want this to be both Woodley Park and Cleveland Park, since that's what the commission covers. And also the commission carries the great weight of being able to pass resolutions and comment on legislation, whereas the community association can, but it's not. So it's great to have their input, but this is like the avenue to really get a lot of more attention to it in a rulemaking basis. So thank you. Okay. So sounds like good discussions. You got some interested voices to help with this, or Commissioner Nash. So look forward to hearing more detail over the next month.
Some interested voices and great suggestions. So thanks for the discussion.
Cool. All right. So with that, we'll move on to our finale here, which fittingly is Commissioner Siddiqui.
All right, I need 2 quick votes. 1 vote on the FY23 third quarterly financial report. I had sent this out earlier. It was prepared by the Office of ANC, because their system is still not working. So I didn't prepare this. They prepared this. We just need to vote on it. So I would like a voice vote on this. I moved the report.
Second.
All right. Those.
Someone second. Oh, wait.
Yes.
You
had like 7 seconds.
All right. All those in favor?
All
I
those in-
told you I would beat you at
your
the
hand.
seconds, Commissioner Siddiqui.
All right, that is the majority of the commissioners. That is approved. Thank you.
Awesome. The other thing we don't need to vote on this, but I'm presenting a proposed budget for us. So here is the budget. It's also pasted on the agenda. We'll hopefully get it voted on at our next meeting. Not major changes. Essentially, I've removed the cost for personnel since we don't have personnel anymore. I've kept the amount of grants the same, and I've moved some money into the other category, just so we can give ourselves a little bit more flexibility. But again, I'm welcoming comments back, and we can vote on it at our next meeting. It's just the minutes need to reflect that we have looked at it a month in advance. And then, does anyone have any quick questions on the budget or any quick comments? Or I don't want to hurry people up, but we can discuss it at our next meeting and have a vote on it. And then the last thing I would just need to declare is that we have some costs that came in for our internet hosting. One is an invoice for $150 for web hosting fees. Another an invoice for $69 for a yearly fee for DIN DNS. And I will be paying those. We don't need to vote on those. I just need to announce them. And I am done.
Thank you. All right, it's the time of the evening. I'll move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's everyone. All right, this meeting is
Thanks all.
adjourned. We'll see you at committee meetings in the next few weeks and then at next month's meeting. Thank you all.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.